Okay, guys, thanks for being such a good audience. I know that it's rough for you guys because a lot to listen to, but just think about Ms. Hoffman. I can do this for 3 days. So. Okay, so be a good audience. They're all very interesting anyway, which helps a lot. So whenever you're ready, Daniel.
That's the actual. Okay. All right. My name is Daniel Bacher, and this is my presentation, Diversity in Democracy. Quote, Section 1 of the 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870, says, quote, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. And in this presentation, I'd like to argue that the right of certain people to vote in the United States is not really being denied, but more so being abridged, and that we need to make sure that we give not just equal right of people to vote, but also equal access of people to vote. So, voter ID laws are one way in which some people are denied access to vote. 10 states in the United States have strict voter ID laws according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. So this is coming straight from the horse's mouth, as they say, from the state legislatures. 3 require non-photo ID and 7 strictly require a photo ID. These laws, recent studies have shown that voter ID laws don't actually significantly affect elections, but they still can be somewhat discriminatory, and we have to remember that this is not happening by itself and independent of everything else. This is happening in a country where there has been a history of restricting access of people to vote. And a 2007 study suggests that minorities are less likely to possess valid identification, according to Slate. That's a 2007 study, so it's a little bit old. So the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial election, a gubernatorial election is an election for a state's governor, was Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams on top, Brian Kemp is the person on the bottom. Georgia has a law called the exact match law, which is actually infamous for being one of the most restrictive voter ID laws in the country. Basically, the law says that your voter ID, in order for you to be able to vote, has to exactly match what's on your other identification. So if the picture is different, if there's a dash somewhere where there shouldn't be a dash, if there's a period somewhere where there shouldn't be a period. Some people had their voter applications and registrations stalled without being notified. And why this is interesting is because Brian Kemp, who was the person who ended up winning the election, was the Secretary of State, and it is the Secretary of State's office's responsibility to notify people if their registrations were stalled, and he failed to notify as many as 53,000 registrations, according to the Associated Press, and as many as 80% of those could have been minority voters, and 70% were black, despite the fact that Georgia's population is only 32% black, so the ratio far exceeded what would have been expected based on Georgia's population. And then in this picture you can see that ID issuing offices often don't have many hours in certain areas. So the darker red areas are areas that have a higher percentage of the black population. And this area is the highest percentage, and you can see that there are only 3 offices, and one of them is open less than 10 hours a week, and 2 of them are open less than 30 hours a week. Another way in which voting is often restricted is by a process called gerrymandering, which is the process by which voting districts are drawn with specific interests in mind. So gerrymandering is not a partisan thing. It's something that both sides do, all sides can do in any context. As you can see here, gerrymandering is a way to get a disproportionate outcome in an election. So you can see that in this hypothetical district, 50 precincts are apportioned into 5 districts, and there are 10 precincts in each district. So this this area is 60% yellow and 40% green, but you can see that there are ways to make 5-district apportioning in which all of the districts can be yellow, or you can have 3 green districts, whereas here you have proportionate outcomes where you have 5 districts, 3 of which are yellow and 2 of which are green, which would be a proportionate outcome for this election. And we know that people don't always live in perfect grids like this diagram, so that's why it can sometimes be kind of hard. But gerrymandering for racial purposes is illegal under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But as you can see, it still can happen. And partisan gerrymandering, which would be gerrymandering to get a partisan advantage, which, as I said, both sides have done, is completely illegal, and there's no sort of regulation to prevent this. So, the North Carolina District 9 election was a 2018 midterm election in North Carolina's 9th district, which was, the election was not certified, meaning that the person who won the election was not seated in the United States House of Representatives initially, because the person who won by only 900 votes, and there were testimonies of voter fraud. So voters testified that they had people coming to their house saying that they would turn in their ballot for them. Absentee ballots are a process by which a person can request a vote to be sent to them by mail, and then they send the vote back in. But some voters had testified that their absentee ballots were collected by a person who came to their house and said that he was going to turn it in for them, or she was going to turn it in for them. But 24% of absentee ballots in this district were not counted, which was more than any of North Carolina's other 12 voting districts, and significantly higher than the state average, which was only about 12%, according to Vox. 62% of the absentee ballots that were not counted were from Robeson County, which is, I believe it's this county here. And then a lot of them were also from Bladen County, and 62% of them, as I said, were from Robeson County, and this is significant because Robeson County is 25% Black and also 38% Native American population. So it's possible that some of this voter fraud that was committed was in the interest of sort of minimizing certain minority voters' effect on the election. So in conclusion, we can see that diversity is continuing to grow in America. In the group of people born since the year 2007, they are the first to not be a majority white population in the U.S. They're only 49.6, which is still a lot, and there's still a major plurality of the population. They're the highest group, but you can see that they are no longer over 50%, and in the change in white under age 10 population between the years of 2010 and 2017, we can see that about 5 out of 6 counties actually experienced a loss in their white population. So as the country is growing in diversity, I think that it's important that we embrace that growing diversity so that we can sort of see people be represented more in our democratic process, which I believe is one of the most important things that we have in America. So for my community service, most of my community service was done right here at Shoshone Mountain Retreat, which is a retreat where I went over the summer, and I've been doing this for all 4 years of high school and 2 years in which I was in middle school. So we went to Shoshone, and what it is, it's kind of like a base camp where you go and you stay there, but during the daytime, you go out into the community and you help people. We help elderly people, we help people who can no longer do yard work for themselves. I did a lot of yard work this past summer. These pictures are all from 2 years ago because that was the year that my dad went. We all know that my dad likes to take pictures. So we can see that I went there, and this year I actually helped run a day camp for the children in the community in the town of Kellogg, but also the surrounding towns around Kellogg. It's in Shoshone County, Idaho, which used to be a very prominent mining community, but since there's no longer really been any mining there, it's kind of become impoverished. So we like to help people in that area. This is me with my kids that I was kind of like a counselor for them. This is us at lunch. Here's me there. I'm in this picture, I believe I'm this one right here. This is us in a group photo at the base camp. And then this is just a photo that we took. We usually like to do something fun. I spend a week there, and then we usually like to do something fun at the end of the week. So this year, we went to the ski resort in Kellogg. So this picture is from there. Obviously, we didn't do any skiing because it was the middle of the summer, but Mr. Cash is in this picture too. He goes with us sometimes. There's my dad, and there's me. So for my post-high school plans, I will be attending Oregon State University in the fall. I was accepted into Oregon State University's Honors College, which I'm very excited about, and I will be attending their College of Science. I don't know these people, this is just a random photo I found on the internet, but yeah, and I like Oregon State because I think it's a really beautiful campus, and it's kind of a smaller college town feel, which I like. It's in Corvallis, Oregon, and since I have just a little bit more time, I will say that this picture is not actually taken on campus. It's taken at a restaurant in Corvallis. The old spaghetti factory, they had this, and I thought it was really appropriate. So.
Just do 2 questions again, just for the sake of time. So, yes.
What are you hoping to study at OSU?
So I want to go into the College of Science. When I was writing my senior paper, I was interested really in political science. You know how it is. I kind of like have changed a lot of what I've been interested in. But that's kind of how I landed on this topic because I knew I was really interested in that. But now I'm going into the college. I'm planning on starting in the College of Science, and I'm kind of planning on starting with biohealth sciences. And currently the plan is physical therapy, but that might change. Who knows? I just like to. I want to do something that's going to help people.
Okay.
So I know that that kind of like ties into my community service of helping other people. Hopefully, whatever I do, I can help people. Yes.
Earlier in the slide, you were talking about the gerrymandering, right? That's
Gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering, sorry. And you were talking about the percentages with the green and the yellow. What did the green and yellow represent?
Oh, I just chose that picture because I wanted to show that it's not a red and it's not a blue thing. It's both sides, and I didn't want to use. I found a lot of images that were like red, that used the colors red and blue, but I didn't want that because I wanted to show that it's not.
It's not about Republicans.
It's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about, So the green and the yellow didn't really represent anything.
Oh, no, like group in particular.
No one group in particular. I just kind of wanted to represent sort of that from a neutral point of view.
Gotcha. I see.
Thank you, Daniel. Good job.